Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Hello, my name is Ryan Bourke. I have Mike Salce on the show today, and we're going to talk about how do you get started being a teacher at the high school?
How do you get started in Special Olympics?
I mean,
Or how did I get started at Keene High School?
how do you get started at Keene High School?
Wow, how I got started at Keene High School was back in 1981. I got a job at the high school, and I was working with students. And then in 1982, my first degree was in plant science back in the early 70s, and then had a business in Keene, and then I went back to school and got a degree in special education. So then I started working at Keene High School. Yep. And then I did special education for about 20 years, and then the next 18 to 20 years I was a horticulture teacher at the high school at the Cheshire Career Center.
Whoa. Now how about the Special Olympics?
Special Olympics, I got started, well, this is my 41st year of doing Special Olympics.
Wow.
So I got involved because some of the students were involved through the Keene Parks and Recreation, and it started off, we used to do skiing up what used to be called Pinnacle Mountain. We did cross-country skiing, and now it's the Gorge, I believe. And from there, we started getting into summer games. I became more and more involved over the years with Special Olympics.
And that was fun. I enjoyed it.
You used to enjoy it. I wish you'd come back and do a couple things.
Maybe next year or something, or I might come back.
Oh, well, you don't have to put it off a year, you know. So for the last 2 years, we've been really doing individual type things, athletes at home, and we're able to get together just a little bit because of the COVID pandemic and because we want to be safe with everyone. But this year we're coming back. We've already done bowling and winter games and the penguin plunge, which I'll talk briefly about if we have time. And right now we are in the middle of basketball, or towards the end of our basketball season. Excuse me. And we have a state tournament coming up in 2 weeks. And then we'll go right into track and field and bocce, which I think you'd be really good at because you like bowling. And then from there we'll go into softball in the fall. So around July we'll start softball. And then we'll get right back into from there, bowling again. So it's a year-round thing. There's no off-season in Special Olympics.
No.
No. What else would you like to know? Would you like to know something about how Special Olympics got started?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So back in the 1950s, 60s, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, excuse me, who had a sister, Rosemary, and she noticed that people, both children and adults with intellectual disabilities, had difficulty recreating like normal people, and also how people with intellectual disabilities were looked at in general. So she started a summer camp at her home, and over the 60s got more and more involved and more people involved. And then in 1968, was the first international games, and that was held in Chicago. And there were 6 people from New Hampshire that went, 6 athletes from what used to be called the Laconia State School up in Laconia. And the next year after that, a lady named Jean Tufts from Exeter, she held the first state games here in the state of New Hampshire at Phillips Exeter. And the Tufts children, who are my age now, are still involved with Special Olympics. So that was in 1970. And then in 1972, they had summer games at Plymouth State College, and in 1973, they had the state games at Keene State College. So yeah, they had it right here in town. So it's gone, and then they went to Gill Stadium, but right now the summer games are in at the University of New Hampshire, and that's a 2-day event.
Yep.
And so over the years, Special Olympics developed, and then more and more states became involved, and now there are thousands of people that are involved with Special Olympics. Statewide, we have about 3,000 or so athletes that participate. They don't participate in every sport. Some people enjoy track and field. Some people enjoy skiing or bowling or whatever. We do those different sports year-round. And so locally, we have around 60 athletes that participate. As I said, right now we're practicing and getting ready for the basketball tournament. And then as soon as basketball is done, we'll start on our track and field and bocce practice. So when Eunice Kennedy Shriver was developing Special Olympics, and over the years they came up with a mission statement, all right? And I've memorized it. I should know it by now, right? But, all right? And it says, the mission of Special Olympics New Hampshire is to provide year-round sports and training and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic-type sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities, giving them continuing opportunities to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy and participation in a sharing of gifts, skills, and friendships with their families and other Special Olympic athletes and the community. So we try to concentrate more on our athletes, what they can do, than rather what they can't do. So if you can't run a race, maybe you could walk it, all right? Or if you have difficulty doing shot put, maybe you could throw a softball, all right? Or if you're bowling and your balls always go in the gutter, then they have what are called, I think, gutter protectors, so the ball doesn't go in the gutter, all right? Skiing, we do snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, and downhill skiing. So there are all kinds of opportunities for athletes to get involved with Special Olympics. So it's a recreational and sport-type activity. Okay. So for many people who may not know, Ryan has a sister, but he also has a brother, Jay. And Jay used to be very involved with Special Olympics. Jay got to go to national games and an international games. And he was a power lifter at the time. I'm not sure how much weight he could carry right now, but, let's see, we got to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger once, and a lot of professional wrestlers, and being at the different games.
That's my favorite actor.
Yeah?
Arnold, yeah.
Really? Okay. So Special Olympics provides those opportunities also. The next Special Olympic Games are coming up in a year, the international, and that's going to be in Berlin, Germany. And then the next national games, which will be in 3 years now, are going to be held in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, at the University of Minnesota, and other places. So maybe I'll get to go to those, who knows? I was able to, this last year, I was one of the track and field coaches. So for the national games, we went down to Orlando, Florida, and we had a whole track team, and we went down to the Disney complex down there, and the track and field competition was at the ESPN Sports Complex. With, if you ever get a chance to go, especially if you're interested in sport, but even not, they must have spent $1 billion on that place. It's just a fantastic place. There are playing fields. There's what I would call a semi-professional baseball stadium. I mean, it's a really big stadium. They have soccer fields, football fields, a really nice track and field area, a number of basketball and stadium complexes down there. So it was quite an experience. We did have one athlete go from Keene, Becky May, who was a track and field, a basketball. So she was on the women's basketball team, and they took home a bronze medal. So that was a terrific experience for her. So there are those opportunities also for athletes, but we really concentrate on the at the local level and also the state level to go to these competitions. Special Olympics is unique in that there's what's called a leveling system. So again, as I mentioned, if you're an athlete and you want to participate in track and field, but you're really not a good runner, then you might be a walker, all right? Or if you really want to run, but you're not as fast as the fastest athlete. So Special Olympics has a way of we assess the athletes and their times, and then athletes are grouped together by ability level, and so they're competing against other athletes at the same ability. So if you were able to run a 50-meter race, Ryan, in 11.9 seconds, all right, but another athlete was able to run a 50-meter race in 32 seconds, then you two wouldn't be in the same division. You'd be in a different division.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd be competing against the really fast runners, and the other athlete would be against the little slower runner. But they're all really close. So that way you're competing against somebody else that is of equal ability as you, right?
That's me, yeah.
So I think for athletes that don't want to be, especially with track and field or summer, get a little recreation, you could come out and do bocce, which is basically lawn bowling. And you have to take a little white ball, which is called a Polino, and you toss it, and then you try to you have different color balls. So you'd have blue and I'd have red, and you toss the ball and see how close you get to the Polino, all right? And then like basketball right now, if you're an athlete that wouldn't want to participate in a team or on a team, then you could participate in what's called individual skills. So it's dribbling a ball, basketball. It's a target pass. It's shooting baskets, but you do it on your own. But most athletes like to be part of a team because they like to have teammates. Okay? Yep. Excuse me. How about if I talk about the penguin plunge really quick?
Okay.
Okay. So the penguin plunge, I know Ryan's had Dr. Rath on and Becky May and another athlete.
Yep.
What was
Amber
O'Connor. And they've talked about the penguin plunge. But the penguin plunge is a bunch of crazy people who I love them all. Jump in the water at Hampton Beach, usually, except for the pandemic years, in February. So it's always on Super Bowl Sunday, and raise money for Special Olympics. So when they do that, we get a portion of the money, a big portion of the money, and Special Olympics gives a portion of the money. And then it costs a lot of money to put on the activity because you have to have tents and things, for trailers for people to change. There's a big party at the casino. There's food. There's a whole lot of fun. And they've raised thousands of dollars statewide, but locally we've spent some of the money, but they've raised thousands of dollars. So Dr. Rath got involved, I think it's 20 years maybe 21 years ago. And Becky's been involved, and a number of athletes and a number of other people from the community have been involved for a long time. And it's been terrific because, as anyone knows who's had to do fundraising for Little League or any of those sports type activities. I remember when my children were in Little League or other sports, and you're selling candy bars or popcorn or whatever, Christmas paper, and you're selling something for $1 or whatever, you get 50 cents back. And it's really hard to get a fair amount of money when you only get 50 cents back on each. So the Penguin Plunges really helped. And then the money goes into our account through Keene Parks and Recreation, which is a huge contributor and help for our gym space, for any number of things, for equipment. Andy Bohannon and Bree at the Keene Parks and Rec, Brian Manson and Matson and Bobby Wilbur before them, and Dave Kyle. They have been big supporters of Special Olympics. So our money goes into those accounts through Special Olympics, and then we're able to provide transportation, room and board for any of our overnights. Basketball, there are fees for the athletes to go there because they have to pay for officials and the places. So our annual budget is in the $8,000 or so range. So that's every year we have to raise that amount to keep us going, to be able to provide the opportunities for our athletes here in the local area. So the Penguin Plunges are really big. And then another fundraiser we have, but it's a local one, is every fall we do what's called the Pisgah Mountain or Pisgah Park race, which is up in Pisgah Park, which is a state park in the Hinsdale, Chesterfield, Spofford, what other town? Winchester area. And it's trail runners, and there's a fee to be in the race, but the money that they get from that, the profits, are donated to our local Special Olympics. And so that's another fundraiser we have. As far as on the pandemic year, we were really lucky because the Keene Fire Department agreed they have a collapsible tank that they use for whatever events that they have, maybe to get water to fires that don't have hydrants. But so they filled up the tank at Keene High School, and the administration at the high school, through Mike Atkins, who's the athletic director, they set up the tank, which is like 2,000 gallons or something of water, and the athletes and other members of the frozen section, which is our local team, and we also had Monadnock and some Keene High School students, because they have a group at the high school level, and they all jumped in the water there. So we were able to do that for 2 years, and so we were able to continue the plunge without the official plunge. Some people took buckets of water around the state and dumped them over their head.
Oh yeah.
Instead of jumping in the ocean. Although I did hear, and I saw pictures of people, even though it wasn't a big event like it is now, and we just finished it in February, people who took videos of themselves dumping a big 5-gallon pail of water over their head, standing out in the middle of a snowbank. Maybe you should do that.
I did once.
Did you?
It was cold.
It is cold. While we still have some time, let me talk briefly about unified sports, okay? So unified sports are where we take Special Olympic athletes and partners. So the Special Olympic athletes would be athletes with intellectual disabilities, and the partners, so it could be friends, family members, acquaintances, and they participate in a team. So here in Keene, right now we have 4 different teams, different levels, and they all have partners. So we do, excuse me, what's called unified sports. At the high school level, at Keene High School, there are 3 seasons. So they have a fall season where they do soccer. Volleyball is also offered, a winter season, which is basketball, which they're involved with right now, and a summer, which is they do track and field also. So they're practicing, I think they're still practicing basketball right now, but they'll start their track season very soon. And that's with students with intellectual disabilities along with other students at the high school level, and they get involved in a team setting, and they participate in what's called unified sports. Right? So again, we're still trying to get you interested, and also your brother.
But one thing though,
Yep.
I have no why.
Well, that is sometimes a difficult thing.
Because my husband father gets home by 5:30.
Yeah.
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 Sometimes 6.
Right, and sometimes it's finding transportation. That does prevent, especially for some athletes that live out of town, because not all of our athletes live like right in Keene. Some live in any of the towns around here.
Yep.
All right. We've also had athletes come in from Bellas Falls and Brattleboro. So there have been, over the years, a couple athletes when they didn't have programs in those areas, and I'm not familiar right now with what they have for programming in that part of Vermont, but certainly.
This is where this station comes from.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's correct. It's great to have them back, or have them here,
Okay.
and have the public access television back. I'm able to watch like city council meetings, and I've watched I've watched some of your shows over the years, but I saw the first one that you did here, and other shows. So it's great to see some local TV. So let me, I'm not sure how much time we have, but before we do have to go, if anyone is interested in the Special Olympics, either as an athlete or as a volunteer, or however you'd like to be involved, you can contact me through the Keene Parks and Recreation Department, or you could go on our Facebook page, which is Team Keene Special Olympics. And my contact information is there. Let me briefly talk about volunteers, if I could, because Special Olympics is all volunteers that help provide these services. We're always looking for volunteers. We have some now for the basketball, but right now I'm going to start looking for volunteers, because at the local level we've got what's called area games, which is a qualifying track meet that's going to happen on May 11th at Alumni Field in Keene, and so we need people to help keep time, to do awards, to do food, to help athletes around the track. There are any number of opportunities to do volunteering for that. And then again, at the other event fundraiser, the Pisgah Mountain Race, we could use some volunteers to help, because we go up into the woods and give out water. Some of these people do a 50K race through the woods, and so they want things like water, Gatorade, bananas, salty items like crackers. These are marathon type runners, but they run up and through the woods and trails. So we can use volunteers for that. Right now at the state level, the basketball tournament is going to happen up in the Plymouth area. So Plymouth High School, Holderness School. I think there's one in Ashland. There's one in Campton. So they're all there, and the state is looking for volunteers. So if you live up in that area, or you'd like to take a drive up there on April 1st, feel free. Come on up and volunteer.
There you go.
There you go.
And that is a wow. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh, we'll do this or this. How about that?